your company, and shout out wave to everybody on Facebook and YouTube visually as well. Please do drop a comment or a like or a share. Help us to build up this visual presence as well. Let it be something that might grow a little. Please evangelise, please share it along, please make it that little bit more opportune, I suppose, for others to connect in with their faith they might enjoy. Just watching in or sitting in and looking at, there isn't much to see, I suppose, really, but at any rate, maybe engaging with us. Again, this is so important. Every show here on Radio Maria, it's not just, as you know, about producing nicely polished sounding radio. That's not the case here at all. Really, it's a family setting where we sit around the table, or we sit around the device, whatever it might be, and engage with us in terms of faith. So please do text, please email, please write to us, please telephone, and be part of the conversation. And perhaps even too, please do engage by way of question and query to help build your faith. Now, if you're hearing the noise behind me, there's a bit of grinding and not grinding of teeth, nothing biblical going on, but grinding and sawing on. I think there's some shutter doors or some doors of one of the industrial units around us here being fixed or repaired or something. There's always something here. Being a business park, there's trucks and lorries and deliveries and dispatches and all these things. Noise is a common part of where we are. We need to find a nice little quiet place out the country. Wouldn't that be nice now? And it may come to it indeed that, please God, the growth is certainly continuing gently onwards and forwards. It may come to the point when we outgrow the building here. Certainly in the months ahead, do please keep a watch out. We will let you know and we will keep you informed. But with God's help, we are hoping to introduce a little bit more by way of adoration, continuous adoration here in our studio chapel. It does make for a very busy building when there are extra people in and out, but at least the activity is confined by and large to the oratory. We don't see or haven't, thanks be to God, have any sort of incident or anything related to health and safety, because we've been careful with our measures by way of distancing, masking, sanitisation, open windows, and we have one of these industrial proportioned air purifiers. So we've taken all we can't take any more possible precautions, I would say, by way of ensuring health and so on. So please God, we're looking later in the month and next month to introducing small steps by way of adoration for Lent, actually, as well. Lent begins the 2nd of March, I think, am I right, this year? And we do hope, please God, to have continuous adoration for the season of Lent, a little bit more than the 40 days. And later on in the year, with God's help, to when the rest of the world, there's a movement called 40 Days for Life, will coincide with that movement in other countries as well, and seek to have 40 days and 40 nights of continuous adoration here once again, with God's help and all things going well. It does seem that a little more common sense is prevailing in relation to dealing with the virus and contacts and so on. You know, that perhaps some of the precautions that were being proposed were a bit more than were necessary. And we're learning more and more, of course, all the while. So it's good to see some of those measures being mitigated somewhat of late, even though there's a lot of people sick at the moment. But the sense is certainly that this is not in any way too threatening. So I suppose to those who are vulnerable, yes, or those who are elderly, yes, by all means. But that a more measured approach by way of, I think one of the English newspapers was writing about it yesterday, that this is more of an endemic by way of a winter flu, a seasonal thing, than it is a pandemic as such. And that the usual measures in relation to flus and so on, flu vaccines and these things have proved their worth in the past, that we can take a more measured and balanced approach, let's say. So I do hope that conversation is going to continue in the public domain, and that, again, a bit more of a, whatever the right word is, excuse me, a more balanced approach, let's say, will become prevalent. Which will mean, of course, then an easing somewhat, hopefully, of some of the restrictions that have been impeding a little bit. And I would hope too, excuse me now, just clear that frog. Sorry about that. And I would hope too a reduction in anxiety. This would be the key thing for me, really, that people have been sort of wound up tight, at least some at any rate, into a real state of sort of fear and anxiety in relation to the whole thing. And I'm not so sure how helpful that is. Some would argue that that's at times worse than the cure is kind of worse than the disease type of thing. So anyways, the signs are hopeful, and I'm encouraged that there's a little bit of calming of the approach to the whole thing, with some of the extended restrictions in relation to those who are close contacts being lifted a little. So that's here in Ireland. That's good to hear. And other countries then following suit in different ways and proposing indeed that measures be redirected a little bit more proportionately too. So that's all good, and the reason I'm just bringing that up, is we don't really talk that much about the virus and the pandemic here on the radio, except to encourage you in your health, vitamin C and vitamin D and exercise and sleep and the right diet and so on. All these good things which keep us healthy and strong, not just for this but for everything, and hopefully keep us strong spiritually, or at least with good, sufficient, robust physical health in order to attend to the spiritual things too. A little bit of everything in there, but this is so we don't dwell upon these things in the way that other secular sources seem to, generate maybe controversy or generate again anxiety. It seems that secular news and secular media, it thrives, or seems to thrive, or we allow it to thrive maybe, on sensation and on conflict and on heat. How I always say here, we have no interest whatever in generating heat or controversy or opposition one against the other. That's simply not our role at all. Rather generate unity and light on these topics. So hence why I'm always inclined to steer away from the hot issues and instead allow these important topics nonetheless to be addressed in a sort of a calm and a measured and open way into the light rather than the heat. And again, that lends itself to understanding things a little bit more clearly and calmly without getting worked up into a frenzy with high blood pressure and again over zealous reaction to these things at times. Anyways, and I would hope that'll be the case in family life too, that the best of decisions and the best of situations or difficult situations are worked through more easily in a calmer approach rather than argumentation or opposition, because that just generates so much division and conflict. Not at all helpful. So in the light of all of that then, our hope, please God, going forward is that again things will ameliorate a little bit so that our continuous adoration proposals for the year ahead will come to pass. So we have a number of shorter blocks of adoration that we'll simply propose, and we will have longer periods, Lent certainly, and the 40 days later in the year. And as we go along, we'll certainly chat about it with you more on the radio here and encourage you to participate, even if you're unable to come to the studio for a period. It's out of reach, or you're not in a position to do so. That's perfectly okay. We might encourage you to join with us on the radio, join with us locally by visiting your own parish church and spending a little time there as well, in solidarity with us, as many of you did. Really moved by that the last 40 days. We had a number of dear friends, our listeners, who visited their own parish church and spent a little time there in solidarity with those who are sacrificing many hours to be at prayer here with us in the studio. So thanks be to God. And the hope then, certainly moving forward, it may not be today or tomorrow or this year, but these things always take time. There has to be a sense of community built up, like the radio itself. It just doesn't happen overnight. It's consistency is the thing, and faithfulness is the thing. That please God, in time, and again with all the conditions and circumstances being allowed for, that we will have continuous perpetual adoration of Jesus here in the radio as part of our radio mission and our ministry. And I know that's certainly a strong ambition of the world family of Radio Maria, that would be indeed the head office, if you like, or the governing body of all the radios. Even though we're all quite independent as national radio stations, we're quite independent, but we rely, again, quite a lot on the leadership and guidance of the world family of Radio Maria, as you know, based in Italy, going for the last 40 years, coming up on 40 years. And they have a wealth of experience in dealing with all these things. We're still quite young here in Ireland. We're coming up on, we're 6.5, going on 7 this year. Well, I don't know where the years went. We were just 3 when I joined, or at least came up here to the microphone. So it's nice to have spent the last 4 years. No, actually, no, coming up on 5 years, actually, isn't it? Yeah, let's see, now 2017. We were 2 when I joined. Wow, gosh, where does those years go? And it's just been really lovely. You've seen it yourself, many of you, how we've grown and matured. And the prayer and the adoration, again, is just something that I'm mindful of, needs to be nurtured carefully and with discretion and with reverence too. So these things just take a little time and a bit of gentle farming, is that a good analogy, to allow it to grow into maturity. Fruit trees don't just grow overnight. They have to be planted, they have to be nurtured and protected, and the very same idea. So please God, great fruit indeed awaiting, great fruit born already, and great fruit awaiting us as well. So just watch that space. We'll let you know a bit more about that as we go on, and indeed the prayer from here accompanies you as well in your need. And just saw the lovely phone call. I spoke to a lovely lady a little while ago asking prayers for Michael, her son, undergoing a kind of operation today for his blood clots, and Sonny just recovering from the virus as well. As she said, the whole family had the virus over the Christmas. It's just been so common now. And lovely to have Tara back with us too, and lovely to have Martina back with us, having recovered from a dose of the virus. So it's great that they're back healthy and well and smiling and at the microphone and on the end of the telephone for us too. So thanks be to God for that. So for all of you who may be bedded down with it and struggling with it, I do hope we can keep some pleasant company for you here on Radio Maria as well in the meantime, and in prayer. Now, I was kind of wandering on a little bit there. I got a little bit off track, but let me just remind you just to get in touch with us. 014 123456 Curdlech Oring. Give us a call. Leach is to call Dleg. Call or shout, literally in Irish. Curdlech Oring. On telephone, annoyed a hen, Cahar, hen do 3 Cahar Cuig She. So very easy there for all our Irish scholars too. +353, of course, if you're outside of Ireland in the north as well, and give us a call there. And on the WhatsApp and text number, the mobile number is not a number to telephone because we can't answer the phone and be on the microphone at the same time, but we can receive texts and WhatsApp messages through the phone. And many of you know the number off by heart, 2089 467 2000, +353 89 467 2000. Or if you prefer email, by all means send us an email, info@radiomaria.ie, and write to us at St Anthony's Business Park, Ballymount Road, Dublin 22. D22 or 7W2 is the air code, and that will suffice to find us. D22 or 7W2. So thanks to everybody who does get in touch, who phones and emails and texts, and we just always love to hear from. As I say, this is your radio station. We like to hear from you, most certainly. Pope Francis again urging us, and it's a tough job. I don't know how a Pope does it. And you wake up in the morning, how do you face another day of meeting zillions of people? I exaggerate, of course. How and the audiences and just all the engagements. Your life is over as a Pope. Really, you're kind of a prisoner of the office of the papacy. And how does he even have a thought of his own? I don't know. Does he get any bit of a a chill, relaxed, or sort of moment himself. Well into his 80s now as well, Pope Francis. So today, the message, certainly, he's urging us the economy must serve the people and the planet and not profits. Now, that's a common expression, people, not profit. How that's lived and how that's exercised is a key thing. But we were talking about the dignity of work and St. Joseph, his Chatechesis yesterday, his Wednesday audience, and the importance of work and the economy. Ergonomics, or economia in Greek, I think it's a Greek word for work, as it turns out. We speak of the economy of salvation, which is interesting in theological terms, which is the working out of salvation in Christ. That work, if you like, that Christ himself did, 30 years of which, of course, were hidden, and many of those, of course, as the carpenter's son. So, by the labour and work of his hands, otherwise unknown. Can anything good come from Nazareth? It just wasn't on the map at all until Christ himself, of course, began his public ministry. And even his own kin, remember we went back to Nazareth, they were saying, this is Jesus, the son of Joseph. Where did he get all this knowledge? Where's all this coming from? So it must have been the best kept secret, or the best kept, his divinity was completely subsumed, as it were, into his humanity. And it must have been that they were simply an ordinary kind of regular family in Nazareth, without anything special to mark them out, because here they are remarking afterwards, like, where is he getting all this from? So the most of the life of Christ, this is a great mystery, the most of his life from the time of the age of 12 until he's at 30, we simply have nothing to go on, absolutely zilch. No encounters, no recorded anything from that time. And it's a wonder, you might scratch your head a little bit and wonder, well, why didn't the apostles ask him, or how did it not come up as a topic? Give us your testimony, tell us your story. Where is this, how is it that for 28 years of your life we know nothing? Was there anything extraordinary to report? Maybe there wasn't. Maybe it was, again, an ordinary life lived extraordinarily well in virtue and in fidelity and in obedience to his mother and his foster father, and working, no doubt, to make a living for the family and support his mother too, after Joseph died perhaps, and maybe the wider family as well, his cousins, because he had a great entourage of his cousins. Your mother and your brothers are here looking for you. And who are my mother, my brother, my sister? Those who do the will of God. So he did have, obviously, cousins and extended family. Anyone knows any part of Ireland where you live or come from, there's extended family hither and yon, and we can't go too far without bumping into somebody who knows somebody belonging to us. No matter where they are in the world, Ireland is that kind of a country. So Nazareth and Israel can't be that different. It cannot be so different. Begin a small land, and where there would have been a certain amount of intermarrying, let's say, within close relations, and this would have lent itself then to having many cousins and so on. And so naturally, there would be the extended family to consider. But we're left wondering. We just don't know. And we're maybe encouraged by that fact in a way too, that the hidden lives that we often live, just the little things we do, like I was mentioning yesterday, the small chores around the house, the little details that everyone has to attend to, these are all what make up a part of life and who we are and our identity and how we live, and that these can be a measure in a certain way too of our faith. And everything doesn't have to be seen, doesn't have to be public, it doesn't have to be broadcast. Most things aren't. And all these good men and women of the past, great saints of the church, great leaders in history, they didn't just become leaders or great saints overnight. Again, all of that is an accumulation of the small stuff. And no doubt the combination of great influence from without, whether it be teachers or family members, parents, siblings, we're not walking around isolated here. We're products really of our environment, meaning those around us, and of our country, our native land, and those who influence us for good or for ill. And hopefully, please God, always for good. And so, the Lord Jesus himself, no doubt, in a certain way, a product of his own upbringing in Nazareth, and no doubt influenced profoundly through his humanity by Our Blessed Lady and Saint Joseph. And yet mysteriously his divine nature too. It should make us kind of stop and ponder a little bit. So at any rate, we're coming from Rome, the message speaking to us about preparing and building a sustainable, inclusive and regenerative economy. So the world will, or the church will constantly proclaim this message to the world, that profits for profit's sake is not the path. It's who does it serve? Again, I mentioned before the idea of we can name some of these billionaires, individuals who have just vast amounts of wealth, and that cries out in some way, doesn't it? Not that we envy them, not that we again bear a grudge or resentment in any way, but it simply cries out in the face of the fact that so many are so poor, and what can be done for the poor. So rather than pointing fingers in that direction and saying, well, I must be okay then, it should challenge me in my own person and my own work and my own resources as to what it is I possess that is already a gift from God, and the task at hand then to apply this to the greater good, the good of those around me, if you like, to support all these other good things too. That if it is that I'm fortunate enough to have employment, fortunate enough to have income, fortunate enough to be able to meet my needs, then there's a duty upon me then also to help meet the needs of others too. And that's what economy, this work then is directed in that way to a wider sense of responsibility, not just an amassing of wealth and material goods for my own individual or maybe even my own family. So a regenerative economy, interesting. So they brought together leaders in the areas of business, finance, development, economics, and the academics, of course. And there's been a sense of trying to work their way through that. And Pope Francis addressed this gathering here to the participants at this commission. And he says we will not emerge from the current crisis the same, the economic crisis certainly, and the pandemic too. There's a challenge here and an opportunity for us to change, drawing on the best available science with the realism of the gospel and in solidarity with the marginalized. So Pope Francis will certainly be remembered for this insistence on having the poor front and centre, and to see that work and economy and all these things are our priority, surely, is the needs of the poor and the unfortunate. So he says we must admit that we have missed many opportunities to change our approach, and asking the question whether or not we are perpetrating new injustices and inequalities. These are questions all worth asking and addressing. And he's urging business leaders to redefine their measure of success as the number of people who move out of extreme poverty, instead of profits, expansion, and short-term and shortest-term returns. Well, that would be our hope here at Radio Maria, certainly as a newly registered charity, that all our activity here is oriented towards reaching out to the poor in spirit, and materially poor, I suppose, in a certain way too, but to preach the gospel to those who have yet to hear it, and to support those who live and love the gospel. And that if graphically the image I use is that, like a river, water flows, or finances and support and help and time and talent and treasure flow in, but there's a wide open, the door isn't closed, or the gate isn't closed, or there isn't a dam there where it's accumulating all of this input it's very much flowing rapidly and freely right out the door. I mean, literally right out the door. That anything that comes into us, certainly by way I can vouch for the whole financial side of things, and we keep very, very careful records. Everything that comes in, it's gone. It's, as soon as it arrives, we don't even get a chance to hold it. It goes into the bank and it's gone out the door. And it's like the water of life, the river of life that teems where it flows. If it's allowed to just well up and stop, well, it dies. It's no good. and the beauty of it is that everything you as dear friends and benefactors, all our dear friends, you give, it's put to work immediately. It's gone out the door. It's paying for all of the enormous costs that we have to meet. But in doing so, it's keeping the microphones hot, is the technical expression. It's keeping us live on air, and it's helping us to communicate this gospel message all the while. And the beauty of it for me is that it's a living message, a living water, that it's as much live as we can possibly make it for now. We hope it will expand and grow and build and become even more of many more live hours throughout the day with your help and support. Let this never dry up. The only way it will dry up if your participation in it dries up, and we encourage you and hope that will never be the case, that there cannot be enough water flowing, and that the more the waters flow, the more the grace flows. And if it is that we ever reach the point where a good way off it yet of self-sufficiency, that overflow is going to go into the world family of Radio Maria and help stations like ours that are struggling and getting on their feet and getting organised and getting it together. That's exactly where it's so that's the image to keep in mind. And this is, I think, what the Pope is referring to for us there, and calling out businesses and economic communities to make these concrete commitments to do their part, to be at the service of the people and the service of the planet as well, and especially at the service of the poor. And so if you heard all the phone calls, you hear certainly all the requests that we read out and share with you of so many souls and just yearning and crying out for this beautiful gift of our faith and relishing it and appreciating, just simply be able to phone up and say, look, can I have my son, my daughter, can you put me in your prayers? What a great gift that is. And we happily do it and bring it to the microphone and share it with you all. This is an enormous gift. You just can't put a price on this. To me, that's a model, I would hope, of the right economic flow. Again, that we have no interest in profit, none whatsoever. We could care less. And in fact, we've no interest in money per se, could care less either, except that we need it to keep the household, alive, to keep the project alive and the mission going. That's the only purpose. And like I say, imagine it like a river in full spate, full flood, that everything coming in is literally going straight out. The costs here, as I say, are very substantial. So I would hope that would be an economic model that we would certainly accompany the Pope in his very insightful message to them, that we seek that the persons who work here, the persons for whom we work, you as dear listeners and friends, this is the purpose and meaning of work per se. Work is not an end in itself, rather a means to a greater end. And it's lovely to come across businesses who do that and who generously support their employees and their families, and the poor likewise. It's always lovely to see. And I commend all such businesses who do that and provide sponsorship and support for all kinds of good initiatives and things too. Ours is purely faith-driven, absolutely as well. So very good. Thanks, Nancy. You're watching here. Nice to have you tuning in there on Facebook. Great to have you. Thanks, William. Yes. Yeah, that's a good question, Nancy, there. Just, so many have been vaccinated, and yet how many have the virus? Well, the vaccine never guaranteed protection against the virus. As I understood it, it was a case of mitigating some of the more severe effects of it. But again, we're learning all the while, and I think we're coming to understand it a little bit better as time goes on, and I think the treatments that are available seem to be very efficacious as well. So thanks be to God. It seems to be mitigating somewhat. Good. Let's take a little bit of a music break if we may. And again, do please get in touch with us, 0894672,000. If you'd like to text and WhatsApp us here, 014123456 to give a call, and info@radiomaria.ie to email, and I can hear from you straight away. And in fact, you're listening back to this later as a podcast or as a repeat, feel free to engage with us here. Now, Gabriel Fauré, indeed, nice little music. Tara is getting to grips with our whole music output here, and input, I might say, as well. So a lovely choice, the Tantum Ergo, great Eucharistic hymn as well. So do get in touch with us, and back shortly after this lovely musical interlude.
And the time now is 8:15, time for our Office of Readings, where I hand over now to Father Martin Shanahan and Nicola Summers.
Welcome everybody to our live evening rosary, and I'm delighted tonight to be joined by Mark and Kathleen.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us here on Radio Maria for the live evening rosary. I'm delighted to be joined by Patricia and Nancy.
You're very welcome this evening to be joining us for the rosary here on Radio Maria. I am joined with Sheila and Aideen.
Hello everybody, and welcome to our live evening prayer from the Divine Office, and tonight I have Barry with me.
Thank you so much for joining us for prayer during the day from the Liturgy of the Hours. Today is Monday, and I'm joined by Kitty Ross.
Where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, there am I among you. Matthew chapter 18, verse 20. Thanks to all our wonderful prayer volunteers.
30 seconds left, Father.
Radio Maria Ireland. Because of this generosity, we are able to bring you the amount of live prayer as we currently do. If you would like to become one of our prayer volunteers and join us live on air to pray either the Rosary or the Divine Office, please call us on 0141 23 456.
Oh, please do indeed get in touch with us. We do love to hear from you for more prayer volunteers. Tara will be delighted to add you to the schedule there, to the schedule, the Excel sheet, and to have you participate. And I love it too. I love to hear lots of new voices and new participants in the work of Radio Maria, because it belongs to you, of course. Now, very good. Thanks indeed to all who are getting in touch with us and communicating with us. And thanks indeed for all the blessings you bring to us by being part of the radio here, and especially your prayerful voice. Now, very good. Lovely gospel reading there for us this morning. The leper who came to Jesus, if you want to, you can cure me. Of course the Lord wants to. Why would he not want to? It's kind of like going to the doctor a little bit, isn't it? Say, if you want to, you can fix me. You can. I say, of course he will. Now show me what's wrong. Tell me what you're suffering from, and let me see it, and let me examine it, and if it is that it's a bit uncomfortable or a bit embarrassing, or all of these things with the medical doctor, we know well the doctor doesn't care two hoots. Again, he's indifferent, or she is indifferent about our ailment, or the body parts, or all the other stuff that goes with it, or how embarrassing it may or may not be, whatever we're sick or suffering from. The doctor, of course, wants to make us well again. And I like that analogy. And what the Lord is teaching maybe in this lovely miracle is the blessing of confession. That when we come to Jesus in confession through the priest, of course Jesus wants to heal us. Again, no matter how often or how repetitive or how embarrassing or how troubling the sins that we commit, we're the same human persons from one day to the next. We're prone to the same weaknesses. So it shouldn't, guilt and shame are two good things the Lord God has put into us, maybe to prompt us in the ways of being responsible for our actions and our behaviours, or omissions for that matter too. Yet when we come to him in confession, always mercy, always forgiveness. Marvellous. Couple of visitors to the radio here yesterday. It was a beautiful, poignant moment of reconciliation, without giving too much away or saying too much either, but assisted by those who wanted to bring them along to help them to reconcile and to find peace and to find God's grace. It's just a lovely moment that the radio could be the venue for that to happen and take place. And I would say the fruit of prayer. Father Jamie was involved with that there yesterday after the Divine Mercy Hour. And just lovely to see, without going into too much detail there, again, just respecting the individuals in question. But this is, again, listen, you can't put a price on this. It's like, again, when the poor leper went to Jesus, was healed, how could he pay him back for that? What kind of fee would you charge? If you were going to charge a fee, I suppose doctors do, they have to pay their nurses or the staff and overheads and so on, and it's a bit expensive at times. However, what price will you put on your health? It's a bit like the same idea if you win the lottery. Suppose you won millions overnight, or suppose you are blessed with great wealth. If all of a sudden we fall ill, well, what's the use of that? It might get you maybe good treatment, perhaps, but the wealth is only going to sit there, and it'll go to somebody else if we die. The scriptures are full of this idea not to put too much mass or store on this world's goods, because we have to let them after us sooner or later. They're going to be passed on to somebody else. So the task, going back to the whole economic idea, and the Pope's exhortation there by way of economics and profit and so on, is that the goods that we enjoy, if they can be put at the service of others and the good of others now, rather than just letting them accumulate or amass for the rainy day that might never come, put them at the service of others. Even who was the steward in the gospel, he was smart, wasn't he? That before he was sacked for being dishonest, he headed off to all the lads that were in debt to the master and said, how much do you owe my master? Well, here, sit, write your bond there, write down, knock it back there from 80 down to 60 or whatever, and give him all a discount. Smart guy, that he went around. No, he was dishonest, of course, but the Lord, or the master rather, praised the dishonest steward for his astuteness. Not a great line in Scripture. He was smart. There's a guy with an economic sensibility, a bit twisted and messed up, but he gets it right. So insofar as, not putting, he knew his job was lost. He knew he was the whistle was blown. He was out of work. So if it is that, and this is the message the Lord gave in that telling that story, because it was just a story, parable, that the children of this world are wiser in their generation than the children of light. So we put an excess perhaps of premium or value on the goods of this world, and maybe not enough on those of grace and of the life to come. And so the goods of this world, insofar as we enjoy them, are not intended for ourselves alone. And this is again where the economics come in. And if you bring to mind so many religious communities and religious orders, you see they operate on the same basis, that they live in community, a shared life, and that their common resources then go into the common need of the community and the building up of the wider religious order. And that's true. I mean, take the Mercy Sisters, the Presentation Sisters, wonderful teaching and nursing communities here in Ireland for 150 years or more, when they were certainly at their strongest and at their healthiest and most vibrant here. So many beautiful religious communities and orders, still many surviving to this day. But they pool their common resources, they live together, and they share the expenses. And it means for a cheaper, obviously, a cheaper way of living than if they're living separately. And too, that their resources, of course, can be poured into the needs of the apostolate and the mission at hand. So there's something to be said for that too. So there's a bit of wisdom there to be drawn from that what the Pope is saying for us today, and for us in general, maybe when it comes to looking at the resources we enjoy and the blessings that we enjoy, both materially and spiritually, and how we are not that far removed from the leper in many respects. We're so much in need of God's mercy that if we come to the point where we think we can do this on our own, if I can manage this on my own, then I'm mistaken, surely. Just to give a little quick shout out again to the Exodus 90 for men. They're having a Zoom meeting, I think, tonight to help orient and gather together the men who are volunteering to take on this 90-day of prayer and fasting, and getting them organised into little groups. But that has the same sort of purpose in mind of prayer, fasting and solidarity. It's a men's group, and the Exodus 90 website will give tips there as to and directions for where women might go for some similar formation and fraternity, I suppose. That's right, sorority, is it? I'm wrong with sorority. Is that it, when the sisters get together, as opposed to fraternity when the brothers get together? That these great movements are blossoming now in the church. So glad to see that Exodus 90 is getting a little bit of traction. Good, my time is up again. I'll have to come back to it again tomorrow, please God. So thanks for your company visually here on Facebook and YouTube. Lovely to have you with us. We're going to break away, of course, from that at the end of the show here. Please stay with us, of course, as well. May God bless you one and all. It's time now, of course, for our Angelus and Midday Prayer.